This program was brought to you by Organo Gold. Organo Gold is a health and wellness company that provides healthy coffees, teas, and chocolate. All one has to do is consume the available products to get all the available benefits. One can also share these products with others to help them improve their health as well. For more information, call 703-359-5642 or visit the website basillemba.com.
And now, Fairfax Breakfast Club with your host, Basil Lemba.
Welcome to the Fairfax Breakfast Club show. My name is Basil Lemba and I will be your host. The Fairfax Breakfast Club is a weekly program in which we bring to you valuable and workable know-how you can use to improve your networking skills and grow your business. We always start the show with a quote, and today's quote is, "There is an orderliness in the universe. There is an unalterable law governing everything and every being that exists or lives. It is no blind law, for no blind law can govern the conduct of living beings." And that is from Mahatma Gandhi. Today with us in the studio, we have somebody who specializes in the field of law. His name is Andrew Cabana. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Basil.
How are you?
Doing great. Great to be here today.
Excellent. We're glad to have you. In fact, if my memory serves me well, the first time we have a lawyer on our show.
I'm glad to be the first.
Okay, so the first question to you, what got you in the field of law yourself, to begin?
Well, I had gone to the University of Maryland and majored in business and marketing, and was working in that field for close to 10 years. And one of my last jobs, I was actually working with many lawyers, providing services to them. And that got me interested I found that I was more interested in what they were doing than what I was doing.
Interesting.
And so I decided to go back to law school. And so here I am.
Okay.
You know.
What kind of law did you study then when you went back to school? Business law or?
I studied all of the different fields of law, but I've specialized since then in employment law, civil litigation, and trust and estates work.
Okay. Okay. Now, give us an example then how you can help in the arena of employment law. Or what are some of the things that a business person should watch for? Because I'm pretty sure you see how maybe not knowing the law, how you could help them precisely.
Oh, definitely. Many business people, I help out a lot of small to medium-sized businesses in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. And so many of them are making, and it's not because they want to violate the law, but they don't know the law. And so they find themselves in violation of things like wage and hour problems. So if they're not properly classifying their workers, they're paying everybody a salary when they should be paying people hourly. They're failing to pay people overtime, they can find themselves later in trouble and subject to a Department of Labor investigation or even a lawsuit. So I help people to avoid those problems up front. Usually, sometimes a half-hour phone call or a half-hour consultation with me can avoid those problems up front. Another area I'm seeing a lot of is with many small businesses are trying to use, to save money, they're trying to employ independent contractors to do a lot of their various services. And if those relationships are not set up correctly at the front end with a signed agreement, there could be a lot of misunderstandings if something changes in the relationship, and the person could then claim that the whole time they were an employee of yours, and they therefore are subject to workers' comp laws. They should be getting unemployment, they should be getting unpaid overtime, which all could have been avoided with a clear agreement up front and with clear structure to how the relationship is set up. So those are some of the issues I see. And then obviously you still see a fair amount of the discrimination and equal opportunity. There's a lot of age discrimination claims out there that employers need to avoid and look into, and a lot of sexual harassment still is an issue in the workforce. And just anything with the hostile work environment, people, you see a fair amount of bullying at some companies, and then this can lead to allegations that it's a hostile work environment. And so, you just saw that with the Miami Dolphins, with the allegations of bullying. And again, if they had caught that now it's a big controversy, all of that probably could have been avoided up front if they had had some clear rules and procedures in place.
I got you. Okay, one thing that caught my attention. So basically, if you have a 1099 person coming to work for you, you need to lay out the exact precise agreement.
That's what I would, if you're hiring somebody under a 1099, whether you have an agreement with their company, in which case, or an agreement with them, yes, you should probably have a written agreement specifying why they're a 1099. Otherwise, you could find yourself subject to both the Department of Labor audit, and then if the Department of Labor finds that you've misclassified the person and that they should have been an employee, you could also find yourself subject to an IRS audit. And that can get quite pricey, the combination of the two. You could owe back taxes, back wages. The states will audit you and look to collect unemployment taxes and workers' compensation contributions for these people. So you really need to lay it out up front that this person is an independent contractor in writing. And generally it's actually, if you're dealing with independent contractors, you should actually even make sure that they have insurance. So that if they have a claim, if they're out there doing a service for you, and you should have one thing you should have in an agreement is an indemnification clause. So if they are out, let's say, driving around doing some kind of work for your company, or and something happens, you're indemnified so that this third party, let's say they get in an auto accident, God forbid, that this third party can't come back after you, saying that was your employee. There's no written agreement. They were doing work for you. You need to pay my medical bills or whatever. So there's a lot of things that people need to look into with these 1099 quote-unquote employees, these 1099 independent contractors, to protect themselves, because otherwise they can find themselves in a lot of hot water later on.
I got you. So that was an employment. The second one was litigation. You mentioned litigation.
Yeah, I do a fair amount of civil litigation, anything from breach of contract claims. I've done Sarbanes-Oxley claims, defamation, both defended it and, on the other end of it. And these are things that I've litigated in state and federal courts throughout the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. And so that's a big part of my practice, is just defending people in civil litigation, and if need be, bringing a suit on their behalf in civil litigation.
Okay. What was the third one?
I do trust and estates work.
Okay.
And I got interested in that. I was always interested in it back in law school, but it actually shocks me. The majority of people in Virginia don't have any kind of estate plan. And so if you don't have an estate plan, the state of Virginia has one for you. And really where this gets to be a problem, the couple things you should have in an estate plan. You obviously need a will or a trust document. You need to have some kind of medical directive. If you get disabled or if you get ill, how much medical care do you want at the end of life? Do you want them to take every
penny you have and use it for that?
Right. Do you want, what kind of care do you want? And obviously once you're, and who do you want to make these decisions? Do you want your spouse, your son, your daughter? You should specify that. Otherwise you get into these large family disputes at the end. And similarly, business owners, if they get disabled, they might be the person who signs the checks for the company. If they don't have a financial power of attorney designating that if they get disabled, this person should have the power over my company, companies, their businesses, their finances can be put in limbo while somebody has to go to court to get a guardianship to be able to handle their things. People don't like to think about these things, but unfortunately, in today's world, you really do need to think about this ahead of time. And a clear example of that also on the estate planning part of it is if you've remarried. If you've had children, if you were married before, had children, and now you've remarried and you have children with your new spouse. The law in Virginia, if you don't have a will, is that your current spouse can only get a third of your estate. The rest of it will be divided up with your children. Well, many people don't want this. If you have, let's say, young children with your new spouse, and meanwhile your other children are grown and they're financially secure, your intentions might have been that your new spouse and your young children should get the bulk of your estate. Yet the law is written to divide your estate among all your children equally. And so people who are in second marriages often don't think about this. They don't have an estate plan, and they're setting up their new spouse and those young children for a very difficult time if something should happen to them. So that's another reason people really, if you've been previously married and you have children from a prior relationship, you really do need to have a trust or a will set up for you.
What is the definition of estate plan? You keep mentioning that, which I understand is the planning of your asset and everything you have. Is that how you define it, as opposed to a will? Or
Well, yeah, a will is part of an estate plan, but an estate plan should also include, like I said, an advanced medical directive of how much medical care do you want and who do you want making those decisions. Do you want to be resuscitated if you go into cardiac arrest, et cetera. If you're brain damaged and there's no hope of recovery, well, how much medical care do you want? And each person, based on their religious views and their personal preference, should make those decisions. But it's better to lay that out ahead of time than have that made for you. And then the other portion of an estate plan that everybody should have is the financial power of attorney. Somebody should be designated who's going to handle my finances if I'm disabled, but I'm not deceased. And a lot of people will have a will, but they have nothing set up on their estate of what happens if I'm disabled and I no longer can make decisions for myself.
I gotcha.
Who do I trust? You should have somebody designated. Otherwise, it could end up that somebody who you wouldn't want to be making those decisions is the one that the court, or they just, the court will designate them. And that would not be against what you wish.
Now, how do you get business people interested in that? How do you go about it?
Well, I do a lot of networking. As you know, I've been out to the Breakfast Club. I do a fair amount of networking. I've been practicing now for almost 12 years, so I have a lot of people I've known over the years. I get a fair amount of referrals from my fellow lawyers. I advertise on the web. I have a website, and also I'm on other websites. I've been designated as a super lawyer, so I'm on the super lawyer website. But a fair amount of my business is just from networking with people and contacting people. And many times, like, you don't have a need, but like I just got a call the other day from a CPA. He didn't have a need, but one of his clients had a legal problem. And I had met him at a networking event. And so he referred her to me, and we're going to be sitting down to meet. So a lot of it comes from referrals from people who know I'm an attorney, know the areas I practice in, and then they have a friend or somebody who has a need, and they send them to me.
Okay. Now, that's very interesting because in general, lawyers do not do much of networking. I mean, maybe it's improving right now. I also understand it's due to the state of the profession itself, and it's probably heavily regulated when it comes to networking, what have you. But lawyers, as far as I can see, do not network a lot. You are a pretty major exception.
I do try to network a lot. And you're right, a lot of lawyers don't do much networking. They just count on, many of the large law firms, to be quite honest, have long-standing relationships with big corporations, and
they generate work for them.
They just generate work for them. The work comes in, and the lawyers really are just doing the work that somebody got that corporation to use them as a lawyer 10, 20 years ago. And so they're really, you're right, not out there networking. But as a solo practitioner and as trying to set up having set up a small law firm and hoping to grow it, I think networking is an important part of a lawyer's marketing. And I'm meeting more and more of my colleagues at marketing events who are starting to network.
I guess the economy itself forced them maybe to out of the house, in a way, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Because whereas business was just coming regularly, now it's like, it may not be coming, so now they think, well, maybe I should go and get it. Because not coming through the door.
I think there is a bit of that, yes. There's been actually in the profession, there's been questions about that. There's been too many lawyers being produced, to be quite honest. Too many people went to law schools in the last few years, and they've produced a whole plethora of young lawyers. When the big firms, they really are not able to hire or absorb these. Plus, I mean, between the big firms, the typical career paths for a lawyer is either government, work for a big firm or a small firm, or go in-house inside somebody's legal department at a big corporation, typically, or a big or medium-sized corporation. Well, those jobs, between the fact that a lot of the baby boomers, because of the financial situation, have not retired when they expected, so a lot of the older lawyers are hanging on in their positions, and so those jobs that people thought were going to be there are not there, and so there's a lot of young lawyers out there trying to set up their own practices or just find work. So unfortunately, the legal profession right now is very, very competitive. And so I think a lawyer who's not out networking is really putting himself and his career at risk. And so that's why I'm out trying to get out as much as I can when as often as possible and meet people. Because you just never know. They probably don't need a lawyer today, but 6 months from now they might, and I wanted them to keep me in mind.
It's really correct. I've learned this. I was in a company once was offering legal services, and the thing was, it's not if but when you need a lawyer.
You are correct, right? And if it's not me, you might need a divorce lawyer. I know colleagues who do divorce. I could refer you. I get a fair amount of referrals from other lawyers who they might do construction law or they might do another type of law, and they don't do the practice areas I practice in, and so when somebody calls them, a client, and says, hey, oh, by the way, in addition to my construction problem, I have this, they will send them my way. So I think it's very important to be out networking, both within the profession and meeting other professions. CPAs, like I said, I just got a referral from a CPA just last week. Just by networking and meeting these people opens up the possibilities.
Okay. Well, law is part of life.
I would agree.
It's
yes.
part and parcel of life. So actually, you can go through life without the needs of a lawyer. And the reality of it is one needs a lawyer that one realizes that or not.
You're right about that. Many times, and that's what I'm finding with many of the small to medium-sized businesses, is if somebody had reviewed their policies up front for maybe an hour, they could have saved themselves a world of headaches later on. But they didn't realize it. They didn't realize that they needed a lawyer to look into this and to set them up with correct policies and procedures, and it cost them later on. And so, yes, I think everybody at some point, if you're going to operate a business, you're definitely going to need a lawyer.
A business or even in life, I think the more I think about it, I think it's the point of education. You have a contract with a sale contract. Who doesn't have a sale contract? How many of us have read the contract and understand what it means?
Yeah, almost nobody does.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
You sign this, the other thing before you do a move, truly, before any decision is made.
Yes.
Which requires a signature and agreement. We behoove you to consult a lawyer. Because fact is, the person who's handing you the contract has run his through a lawyer.
Yes. Many times.
More often than not.
Yes.
He's handing it to you because he approved it. Otherwise, they wouldn't. They're probably the smarter one. They have a contract.
Yes.
But of course, the contract is protecting them, nothing wrong. But you, as a consumer, or the other person on the other side of the deal, need to make sure and know that these things, you protect it as well.
You're exactly right. In any, I wouldn't say in every transaction, because sometimes we buy stuff, you go on the internet and you want to buy something and they'll make you check the box that you've read the 52-page agreement, and none of us read it. Even us lawyers don't read it.
I'm glad to hear that. Well, we're not the only one then.
Well, I'll take that. Some of my colleagues who are, even more, I guess, anal than me have read it, but most of us lawyers even get bored and can't get through that whole agreement.
Well, but it is designed that only a select few could really read it 10, 15, I'll give you an example, not to cut you short, I'm sorry. Let's say you go to Kinko's and then you say you want to print something that you want to shoot out. Well, guess what? Before you get to there is that whole thing, you actually scroll down. Right. By the way, by the time you're reading that thing, it's costing you money. So most people just click agreed.
Exactly. And usually if it's Kinko's and you're just going to, printing out a couple pages off the internet or making some color copies,
they're probably not.
It's not a big deal. Uh-huh. That's really protecting them, that you're basically agreeing you're not violating somebody else's copyright. Uh-huh. But any large transaction, whether it's buying a car, buying a house, setting up a business, hiring employees, you really should consult with a lawyer before you go into this, because otherwise you could get yourself into a lot of trouble. And it's just, a little work on the front end of finding out what the legal issues are on whatever your specialty is. I have clients who do construction jobs, and again, there's so much regulation in that field, and if they don't look into it, and talk to a lawyer, they could get themselves into a world of trouble. So yes, anything you're doing like that, you hear horror stories of people do additions to their house and didn't get the right paperwork, and then the government comes and tells them to tear it all down. And so at the front end, getting a lawyer involved and making sure you have the proper approvals can save you a lot of headaches at the back end of any kind of transaction.
Come to think about it, most people buy a car. A car is quite a purchasing deal. Quite a lot of money. I guess it's second only most people to the house.
Right.
How many people have run the car contract through a lawyer?
Probably none, virtually none. Yeah, they trust the dealership.
Yes, it is the second most expensive thing we buy for most people.
Yes, and you're right. Virtually none of them will take it to
Nobody.
a lawyer. Nobody does.
Nobody will.
They just trust the car dealership, and that agreement is protecting the dealership. It's not protecting you. It's written by the dealership's attorneys, and it protects the dealership, and it protects the auto manufacturer. It doesn't protect you. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Yeah, people don't run those by people. I mean, I'm shocked by all the kinds of things people do. And nowadays, I think the internet, in some extent, has kind of led people into that, where like you can set up your own business on the internet. Mm-hmm. Without a lawyer. And that's great if you know exactly what you're doing, but do you know what type of business you should be setting up? Have you really thought it through, what the tax implications are? And most people haven't. They just know, oh, I can go on this website and set up my business, or I can set up this, and should they, yes, you can, but should you be? And many times they're making mistakes, They could be making a lot of mistakes. Because if it's a cookie cutter type product, approach, and it's not for everyone. And so, I always advise, if you're doing anything of any,
value, any significant,
you should probably consult with a lawyer and make sure you do it right the first time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, folks, this is education. It's fundamental, really.
Yes.
It's life. Law is applied to all of life.
Yes,
pretty much.
definitely.
And then just think about it and act in accordance. Really, that's what I would suggest. Now, I want to get back to the Breakfast Club, which you mentioned beforehand. You've been at a Breakfast Club. Can you share with the audience your experience at the Breakfast Club?
Oh, I think the Breakfast Club is great. I've met some great people. Obviously, you go there, you're there. There's always introduction. There's always an interesting topic. One of the members gets up and speaks and talks about something that's of interest to the whole group. Whether it was, I remember the last one I was at, it was about web design and the importance of having a proper website, which it is. Nowadays, it's your front door to your business. And so many people don't think about it. I still see many of my colleagues have horrible websites that look, just unbelievably bad, and with typos and all kinds of problems on them. And yet, so this gentleman was talking about how you should have a proper website at the last meeting. And then there's usually, some type of teaching moment about the importance of networking. And then we network, and usually it's the older members and network with all the new people, the new invitees. And it's just a great way to meet people. You meet about 30 people in a day. And yes, can all of them use my services? Probably today, none of them, but even in the future, some not. But they know people who could use my services. Definitely. And again, on my end, I might not need their particular services, but again, I know people who will. And so it's just a great opportunity to meet people, business professionals, and to find out about them and what they're offering, and to introduce yourself. So I'm a big fan.
Okay, good, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, we meet the second or third Thursday of the month here in Fairfax at the Old Town Hall, 3999 University Drive. But also twice a year in May and December, put on an expo. On December 6th coming up, we have a big expo taking place right here at Shriners International, which is 9001 Arlington Boulevard. We're going to have about 100 exhibitors there. We're expecting 400 business people. Again, a great opportunity for people to come together and do business with one another. We do this event because I think they're very, very fundamental and helpful for the economy. What we're trying to do is just create a good space for people to come together, and then they take it from there. We're really just creating the opportunity for them to come together so they can do business.
I went to last spring's expo, and I thought it was a wonderful opportunity to meet people, to meet business people and people in a variety of fields.
Yes.
And I'm always amazed actually meeting people that there's businesses out there that until you meet them, you didn't even know there was that need. Yeah. And then you're like, wow, that's brilliant. And so I find that exciting. One aspect I like about practicing law is, if I get involved with a client and they might be in the construction business, all of a sudden I have to learn all about construction.
That's right.
And then, a month later, I might be involved with a person who operates a restaurant, and now I'm learning all about restaurants. And so I think that's great. And I think at the expo is a great opportunity to meet people in a variety of fields and variety of walks of life. And you can always learn. you always can learn something new.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great part of it.
Yes, and different type of businesses, and then really you get to enhance your life, because knowing that now you know it add to your life. You know, this is something you can use, or somebody can use this service and what have you. And in a way, it's such an interesting world, and you'll never know until you go to such an event and find out what is out there, what's being offered.
Oh, I agree 100%.
Yeah. So that's it's major. So we definitely want to have a big event. We're going to have about 5 restaurants there. We want to get there, and massage, door prizes, and beverage, and what have you. We also have some seminars we're putting together with top-notch speakers coming to do seminars. Like basically, what really would enhance the business, meeting the people, increasing their knowledge, and at the same time having some good food and what have you. So that is the formula. Door prizes and everything else. And of course, Andrew will be there, so that's another reason for you guys to come on.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, definitely we're going to have a lot of fun. So yes, just before we close out over here, I want to remind you that every third Thursday of the month in Fairfax at the Old Town Hall, 3999 University Drive, we have the breakfast event. Come on out. You can also find out more about breakfast event on our website, which is blnbc.com. And the expo twice a year in May and December. Actually, the next expo will be in June 20th, especially because we're celebrating the 10th anniversary. So we have to arrange everything so we can have the best location there is, which is the Stacy Sherwood Center, Community Center in Fairfax. So we'll have it there, and come on out. They definitely want to have you there with us. And come, and then you can see Andrew there, definitely, and make a point of checking out his website to learn more about what he does, because law is part and parcel of life. Thank you very much for tuning, and we're looking forward to seeing you again next time. In the meantime, have a very productive day, and we're looking forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.
This program was brought to you by Organo Gold. Organo Gold is a health and wellness company that provides healthy coffees, teas, and chocolate. All one has to do is consume the available products to get all the available benefits. One can also share these products with others to help them improve their health as well. For more information, call 703-359-5642 or visit the website basilemba.com.